Marcus Chen froze in the doorway of the executive suite, his mop bucket clattering to the floor. The sound echoed through the empty 42nd floor like a gunshot in a cathedral. There, silhouetted against the floor-to-ceiling windows, overlooking the glittering Chicago skyline, sat one of the most powerful women in America, crying. Victoria Sterling, CEO of Sterling Dynamics, the woman whose face graced Forbes covers and whose voice commanded boardrooms across 3 continents, was hunched over her mahogany desk at 3 in the morning. Her perfectly styled platinum hair had fallen loose around her shoulders. Her $1,000 blazer lay crumpled on the floor, and she was sobbing with the kind of raw, desperate grief that comes from a place too deep for public faces to reach. Marcus had been cleaning these offices for 8 months. He knew the rhythms of this place, the late-night workaholics who forgot he existed, the early morning executives who stepped around him like furniture, but he had never seen anyone here after midnight, especially not her. And he had certainly never seen Victoria Sterling looking anything less than untouchable. She looked up sharply, her tear-streaked face catching the blue glow from her computer screen. For a moment, neither of them moved. Her eyes, usually the color of winter steel in magazine photos, were red-rimmed and vulnerable in a way that made Marcus's chest tighten. She opened her mouth as if to speak, then closed it again, as if she'd forgotten how to form words that weren't commands or quarterly projections. "I'm sorry," Marcus whispered, already backing toward the door. "I didn't know anyone was—" "Wait!" Her voice cracked on the word. "Please, don't leave. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you." Marcus had spent 34 years learning when to stay invisible, growing up in Chinatown with parents who cleaned office buildings to put food on the table. He understood the unspoken rules. Keep your head down, do your work, and never assume you belong in spaces that weren't meant for people like you. But something in Victoria Sterling's voice stopped him cold. It wasn't the voice of a CEO giving orders. It was the voice of someone drowning. "Ma'am, I can come back later," he said softly, his hand still on the door handle. "I don't want to intrude." "You're not." She wiped her face with the back of her hand, a gesture so ordinary it seemed impossible, coming from someone worth $9 billion. "God, look at me, the great Victoria Sterling falling apart in her own office like some tragic heroine in a soap opera." Marcus stepped forward hesitantly, his years of training warring with something deeper, the instinct to help someone who was hurting. Is everything okay?" She laughed, but it came out bitter and sharp. "Everything's okay? My company is worth more than the GDP of small countries. I have houses on 4 continents. I employ 60,000 people, and 3 hours ago I got a phone call that made all of that feel completely meaningless." The words hung in the air between them. Marcus found himself moving closer, drawn by something he couldn't name. In the dim light, Victoria Sterling looked smaller than her reputation, more human than her net worth suggested possible. Her computer screen showed what looked like medical records, and there was a crumpled tissue box beside her keyboard. "I don't even know why I'm telling you this," she continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "You're probably thinking this is exactly what you'd expect from some privileged billionaire, crying over problems that money should be able to solve." "I'm not thinking that," Marcus said quietly, and he meant it. Whatever was happening here had stripped away every layer of wealth and power, leaving behind something raw and real. Sometimes the things that hurt the most are the ones money can't touch. Victoria looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time since he'd walked in. "You're Marcus, right? 3rd shift, East Wing?" He blinked, surprised. In 8 months of emptying her trash and vacuuming around her desk, He'd assumed she'd never noticed him at all. "Yes, ma'am. You have a daughter. I've seen the pictures you keep in your supply cart." "Emma," he said, his voice warming automatically. "She's 7. Victoria's face crumpled again, fresh tears spilling over. "My daughter is 7 too. Was 7, Her breath caught. "The doctors said there's nothing more they can do. 6 months, maybe 8 if we're lucky. But lucky seems like the wrong word when you're talking about watching your child die." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He thought of Emma, probably asleep right now in the tiny apartment they shared in Pilsen. Her dark hair spread across her pillow, her breathing soft and steady. The idea of losing her was so unthinkable that his throat closed up completely. "I'm so sorry," he managed. "Lily has a rare form of leukemia," Victoria continued, as if saying the words out loud might somehow make them less real. "We've tried everything, the best hospitals, experimental treatments, specialists from around the world. I've thrown millions of dollars at this disease, and it doesn't care. It just keeps taking pieces of her away." Marcus set down his cleaning supplies completely, forgetting protocol, forgetting the invisible barrier that was supposed to exist between them. "Where is she now?" "Children's hospital. She's been there for 3 weeks. The longest 3 weeks of my life." Victoria's voice broke again. "She asked me tonight if she was going to see her 8th birthday, and I couldn't answer her. I couldn't look my daughter in the eye and tell her everything was going to be okay, because it's not. Nothing about this is okay." The office fell silent, except for the distant hum of the building's ventilation system and the muffled sounds of traffic far below. Marcus watched this woman, this powerful, brilliant woman who commanded respect and fear in equal measure, fall apart in front of him, and he felt something shift in his chest. The space between them seemed to shrink, not because of proximity, but because pain had a way of making everyone equal. "My wife left when Emma was 2, Marcus found himself saying. Said she couldn't handle being poor, couldn't handle the uncertainty. But Emma's the best thing that ever happened to me. I can't imagine what you're going through." Victoria looked up at him, her tear-streaked face reflecting something like gratitude. "Everyone keeps telling me how strong I am, how I'll get through this. My board, my friends, even the doctors, they all act like my success in business means I should be able to handle this too. But I can't. I don't know how to fix this, and I've never encountered a problem I couldn't solve by working harder or spending more money." "Maybe that's not what Lily needs," Marcus said gently. "What do you mean?" "When Emma was diagnosed with pneumonia last year, I spent 2 days in the ER with her. I couldn't afford a private room, couldn't pay for the best specialists. But you know what she told me later? She said the best part was that Daddy stayed with her the whole time. That Daddy held her hand and read her stories and made her laugh, even when she felt terrible." He paused. "Sometimes the most important thing we can give them isn't the most expensive thing." Victoria stared at him for a long moment. "You think I'm not there for her?" "I think you're probably trying to save her the only way you know how," Marcus replied carefully. "But maybe she doesn't need you to be the CEO right now. Maybe she just needs you to be her mom." The words settled between them like stones dropping into still water. Victoria wiped her eyes again, this time with more purpose, as if she was trying to see something clearly. "I haven't been to one of her art therapy sessions," she admitted. "I keep scheduling meetings with new doctors instead. I haven't read her a bedtime story in weeks because I'm always on conference calls with researchers in Germany or Switzerland. I thought if I could just find the right treatment, the right cure, then I could make this whole nightmare go away. And now? Now I'm sitting in my office at 3 a.m, crying because I finally realized that I might cure her disease and still lose my daughter." Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. She doesn't even ask for me anymore when she's scared. She asks for the night nurse, Maria. Maria, who makes $8 an hour and probably knows more about what Lily needs than I do. Marcus felt his heart break a little for both of them, for the terrified mother and the sick child who were losing each other even as they faced the biggest fight of their lives. "It's not too late," he said softly, "isn't it? I've been so focused on being her savior that I forgot how to be her comfort. I've been treating her illness like a business problem instead of—" She trailed off, fresh tears threatening. "Instead of what?" "Instead of the last chance I might have to be the mother she deserves." The admission hung in the air like a confession. Victoria Sterling, the woman who had built a technology empire from nothing, who had been featured on the cover of Time magazine as one of the most influential people in the world, looked smaller and more lost than anyone Marcus had ever seen. "My shift ends at 6, Marcus said quietly, "but if you think it would help, I could drive you to the hospital. Sometimes it's easier to face hard things when you're not alone." Victoria looked at him in surprise. "You would do that? You don't even know me." "Not really." "I know you're a mother who loves her daughter," Marcus replied. "That's enough." For the first time since he'd found her crying, Victoria smiled, just a small curve of her lips, but genuine. "I haven't met many people like you, Marcus Chen." "Good people are everywhere," he said. "Sometimes we're just too busy looking up or down to see the ones standing right beside us." Victoria stood slowly, smoothing down her wrinkled skirt with hands that were no longer shaking. "I should go home, shower, change, try to look like myself again before I see her." "Maybe don't," Marcus suggested gently. "Maybe just show up as her mom. I bet she'd like that better." Victoria paused halfway to gathering her jacket from the floor. "You really think so?" "I know so. Kids are smart about what matters, and right now what matters most is that you're there." She nodded, something resolute settling into her features. "You're right. God, when did I become someone who needed a janitor to remind me how to be a mother?" "You didn't need reminding," Marcus said. "You just needed permission to stop being perfect for 5 minutes." Victoria Sterling looked at him for a long moment, and Marcus saw something change in her expression, a wall coming down, a mask being set aside. "Thank you," she said, and the words carried more weight than any quarterly earnings report or board presentation ever could. "For what?" "For seeing me when I couldn't see myself." As they stood there in the quiet office, surrounded by the trappings of power and success that had suddenly become irrelevant, Marcus understood that something fundamental had shifted. The invisible lines that separated their worlds, wealth from poverty, power from service, employer from employee, had blurred in the face of a truth that money couldn't change and status couldn't protect them from. Sometimes the most important conversations happened at 3 a.m. between two people who had every reason to remain strangers, but found themselves connected by the simple recognition that pain and love made everyone equal. And sometimes the person who knew exactly what you needed to hear was the last person you ever expected to be listening. Victoria gathered her things slowly, and Marcus returned to his cleaning cart, but the silence between them was different now, warmer, more human. Neither of them knew that this chance encounter would become the beginning of something that would change both of their lives forever. But they both knew that when the sun came up, Victoria Sterling wouldn't just be going to the hospital as a CEO trying to solve an impossible problem. She'd be going as a mother, ready to hold her daughter's hand and be present for whatever time they had left. And that, Marcus thought as he watched her walk toward the elevator with something like peace in her posture, was exactly where the healing needed to begin. The fluorescent lights of Children's Hospital cast everything in a pale, sterile glow that made even the cheerful cartoon murals on the walls look washed out. Marcus had never been inside a place like this, where hope and heartbreak lived side by side, where the sound of children's laughter mixed with the quiet beeping of machines that measured lives in increments too small to see. He sat in the visitors' lounge, a cup of terrible coffee cooling in his hands, watching Victoria Sterling through the glass door of room 314. She had been in there for 3 hours, and in that time, Marcus had watched her transform. Gone was the commanding presence that had built a billion-dollar empire. In its place sat a woman reading picture books in different voices, helping her daughter color inside the lines of a butterfly's wings and laughing at knock-knock jokes that probably weren't even funny. Lily Sterling was smaller than Marcus had expected, her 7-year-old frame dwarfed by the hospital bed and the tangle of tubes and wires that connected her to various machines. But her eyes, the same steel gray as her mother's, were bright with intelligence and mischief, and when she smiled, the whole room seemed to lighten. "She's beautiful," said a voice beside him. Marcus turned to see a Latina woman in scrubs settling into the chair next to his. Her name tag read, Maria Santos, RN. "You must be Maria," Marcus said. "Victoria mentioned you." Maria's eyebrows rose slightly. "She did? That's surprising. Ms. Sterling doesn't usually notice the staff." "She notices more than you think. She told me Lily asks for you when she's scared." A soft smile crossed Maria's face. "Lily's special. Most kids this sick, they get angry or they get quiet. But Lily, she asks questions, wants to know how everything works, why the medicine tastes so bad, whether the IV pole has a name." Maria's expression grew more serious. "She also asks when her mama's coming back from her important meetings." Marcus felt his chest tighten. "How often has Victoria been here?" "Before tonight, maybe twice a week, and never for more than an hour. Always on the phone, always. Talking to doctors about treatment options and clinical trials." Maria glanced toward the room where Victoria was now lying beside Lily on the narrow bed, both of them looking at something on a tablet. "This is the first time I've seen her just be with Lily, really be with her." They watched in comfortable silence for a moment. Victoria was pointing at something on the screen, and Lily was giggling, covering her mouth with her small hand in a gesture so purely childlike that Marcus felt his throat close up thinking about Emma. "How bad is it?" he asked quietly. Maria was quiet for so long that Marcus thought she might not answer. Finally, she said, "The doctors give her 6 months, maybe 8. But Lily doesn't know those numbers. Kids her age, they live in the present. If she feels good today, today is good. If Mama reads her 3 stories instead of 1, that's the best day ever." And Victoria knows this. Ms. Sterling knows the medical facts. She knows the statistics, the treatment protocols, the names of every specialist between here and Switzerland. But knowing about something and understanding it, Maria shrugged. "Those are different things." Through the glass, they could see Victoria gently brushing Lily's thin hair away from her face. It was such a simple gesture, but there was something tender about it that made Marcus think of the hundreds of times he'd done the same thing for Emma, checking for fevers, smoothing away bad dreams, offering comfort that had nothing to do with money or medicine. "She loves her," Marcus said. "Of course she does. But love and presence aren't always the same thing." Maria stood, gathering her things for rounds. "Thank you, by the way." "For what?" "For whatever you said to her at 3 in the morning. This is the most like a mother I've ever seen her." After Maria left, Marcus remained in the uncomfortable plastic chair, watching Victoria discover what he already knew, that sometimes the most important thing you could do for someone you loved was simply show up and stay. His phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Rodriguez, his neighbor who watched Emma after school. "Emma's asleep but keeps asking when you'll be home." "Everything okay?" Marcus typed back, "Work ran late, home soon. Thank you for watching her." It wasn't entirely a lie. This was about work, in a way, about understanding that the lines between employer and employee, between the powerful and the powerless, weren't as fixed as everyone pretended they were. Sometimes a billionaire CEO needed the same thing a single father needed, someone to tell them they weren't alone. He was about to leave when Victoria emerged from Lily's room, closing the door softly behind her. She looked exhausted but somehow lighter, as if she'd set down a weight she'd been carrying for months. "Thank you for waiting," she said, settling into the chair Maria had vacated. "I wasn't sure you'd still be here." "How is she?" Victoria's smile was small but genuine. "Tired but happy. She wants to know if you'll come back tomorrow so she can show you her art project. Apparently she's making a friendship bracelet for Emma." "She doesn't even know Emma." "She knows Emma is 7 and likes purple and has a daddy who cares enough about someone else's little girl to sit in a hospital waiting room until dawn." Victoria rubbed her temples. Lily's always been good at seeing what matters. They sat in comfortable quiet for a moment, watching the early morning light filter through the tall windows. The hospital was beginning to wake up around them. Nurses changing shifts, breakfast carts rolling down hallways, the gentle chaos of another day beginning. "I haven't been a very good mother," Victoria said suddenly. Marcus considered this. "You've been trying to save her life. That seems pretty good to me." "But I haven't been living it with her. Do you know what she asked me tonight? She wanted to know if I was proud of her for being brave, as if she needed to earn my attention by handling cancer with grace." Victoria's voice cracked slightly. "What kind of mother makes her dying child worry about disappointing her?" "The kind who's terrified and doing the best she can," Marcus said gently. "Emma asks me sometimes if I'm sad that her mama left because of her. Kids always think everything is their fault, even when it's not. It doesn't mean you failed her. It means she's trying to make sense of things that don't make sense. How do you do it? Raise her alone, work multiple jobs, and still manage to be present for her?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment, thinking about the question. "I guess because I learned early, that time is the only thing you can't make more of. Money, success, achievements, you can always get more of those. But the moment when Emma wants to tell me about her day, or needs help with a bad dream, or just wants to sit together and watch cartoons, that moment only exists once." "I've been treating Lily's illness like a business crisis," Victoria admitted. "Identify the problem, allocate resources, find the most efficient solution. But she doesn't need me to be efficient. She needs me to be her mom." "It's not too late, isn't it? She's been in this hospital for 3 weeks, and I know more about her medical chart than I do about whether she's made any friends here, or what her favorite nurse brings her for snacks, or whether she's scared when she goes to sleep at night." Marcus thought about this. "So ask her. What if the answer breaks my heart? Then it breaks your heart, but at least you'll know her heart well enough to feel it breaking." He paused. "Besides, hearts can heal. Distance doesn't." Victoria looked at him with something like wonder. "How did you get so wise about this?" Marcus laughed softly. "Trial and error. Mostly error. I've made every mistake in the book with Emma. The difference is I couldn't afford to hire someone else to fix them. I had to learn how to show up even when I didn't know what I was doing." "Show me," Victoria said suddenly. "Show you what?" "How to show up. I know how to run a company, how to negotiate billion-dollar deals, how to make decisions that affect thousands of people. But I don't know how to just be with her without trying to fix everything." Marcus considered this request. It was one thing to offer comfort in a moment of crisis, another thing entirely to become involved in the complex grief of a mother facing the unthinkable. But when he looked at Victoria, really looked at her, he didn't see the powerful CEO or the intimidating billionaire. He saw someone who reminded him of himself in those early days with Emma, when every decision felt impossible and every day felt like a test he might fail. "Okay," he said, "but not here. Hospital time is different from real time. Everything here is about being sick. If you want to know Lily, you need to spend time with her, somewhere she can just be a kid. She can't leave the hospital right now. Her immune system, I don't mean take her out, I mean bring normal to her." Marcus pulled out his phone and scrolled to a photo of Emma's bedroom. "See this? Emma and I painted that mural together when she was 6. It's not perfect. The giraffe looks more like a yellow dog, and the sky is 3 different shades of blue because we ran out of paint halfway through. But she tells everyone who visits that her daddy helped her make it, and it's her favorite thing in the whole apartment." Victoria studied the picture. "It's beautiful. It's terrible. But we made it together, and that's what makes it perfect." Marcus put his phone away. "When's the last time you and Lily made something together? Something that didn't have anything to do with her being sick?" Victoria was quiet for a long time. "I don't remember," she finally admitted. "Then that's where we start." Over the next week, Marcus found himself becoming part of a routine he never could have imagined. Every morning after his night shift ended, instead of going home to catch a few hours of sleep before picking up Emma from school, he stopped by the hospital. At first, he told himself he was just checking in, making sure Victoria was following through on her promise to be more present. But the truth was more complicated. Watching Victoria learn how to be with Lily was like watching someone discover a language they'd forgotten they knew. And Lily's delight in having her mother's undivided attention was infectious in a way that made the sterile hospital room feel warmer. "Marcus," Lily called out as he appeared in the doorway on Wednesday morning, "come see what Mama and I made." The bedside table was covered with craft supplies, colored paper, safety scissors, glue sticks, and enough glitter to redecorate the entire pediatric ward. In the center of it all was a construction paper garden, complete with flowers that had Emma's name written in Lily's careful 7-year-old handwriting. "We're making friendship. Flowers," Lily explained seriously. "Mama says Emma likes purple, so I made her 3 purple ones. And this yellow one is for you, because yellow is happy, and you make Mama happy." Marcus glanced at Victoria, who was sitting cross-legged on the hospital bed, her expensive clothes covered in glue and glitter, looking more relaxed than he'd ever seen her. "Lily's been teaching me about flower language," Victoria said. "Apparently, yellow flowers mean new friendship, and purple flowers mean trust. And red flowers mean love," Lily added, holding up a slightly lopsided red paper flower. "This one's for Mama because I love her most of all." Victoria's eyes filled with tears, but they were the good kind this time. "I love you most of all too, baby. Even more than your important meetings? Especially more than my important meetings." Lily beamed and went back to arranging flowers, humming under her breath. Marcus watched Victoria carefully cut around the edges of a green paper stem, her movements precise, even with craft scissors, her focus complete. "How are you doing?" he asked quietly. "Better," she said, and he could hear the surprise in her voice. "Different? I called off a board meeting yesterday to stay for her physical therapy session. 6 months ago, I would have said that was irresponsible. Now I can't imagine being anywhere else." "Any regrets?" Victoria looked at Lily, who was now explaining to her teddy bear why the blue flowers needed to go next to the pink ones for proper color balance. "Only that it took me this long to realize that the most important business I'll ever be in is being her mother." That afternoon, while Lily napped, Marcus and Victoria sat in the family lounge, sharing a bag of chips from the vending machine, and talking about the ordinary things that made up their very different lives. Victoria told him about growing up in foster care, about building her company from nothing, about the loneliness that came with success that nobody wanted to hear about. Marcus told her about his parents' restaurant that failed during the recession, about his ex-wife who left for someone with better prospects, about the way Emma had become his whole world without him even realizing it was happening. "Do you ever wonder what your life would have looked like if you'd made different choices?" Victoria asked. "Every parent does," Marcus said. "But wondering doesn't change anything. The only choice that matters is what you do next." "What if what I do next isn't enough?" Marcus was quiet for a moment, thinking about how to answer that. "Emma had pneumonia last year, bad pneumonia. For 3 days I sat in the ER with her, and all I could think was that I should have noticed the symptoms sooner, should have taken her to the doctor earlier, should have been a better father who could afford better insurance." He paused. "But you know what Emma remembers about that time? She remembers that I brought her favorite blanket from home, and that I read her the entire first Harry Potter book while we waited, and that I slept on the floor next to her bed so she wouldn't be scared." "What's your point?" "My point is that kids don't remember perfect. They remember present. They remember feeling loved." Marcus looked toward Lily's room, where they could see her sleeping peacefully, surrounded by her paper garden. "You can't cure her cancer by being a perfect mother, but you can make sure that whatever time she has left, she spends it knowing that she's the most important thing in your world." Victoria nodded slowly. "I used to think that providing for her meant making sure she had every advantage money could buy. The best schools, the best opportunities, the best medical care. And now I think providing for her means making sure she knows she's loved, not for what she achieves or how well she handles being sick, but just for being herself." If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. As the days passed, Marcus watched Victoria's transformation continue. She moved her office to Lily's hospital room, taking meetings via video call while Lily colored at her bedside table. She learned to braid Lily's thinning hair in the intricate patterns that made her daughter feel beautiful. She discovered that Lily was fascinated by science and spent hours explaining how different machines in the hospital worked, turning medical necessity into educational adventure. But the real change came in the small moments. Victoria learned to recognize when Lily needed comfort versus distraction, when she was tired versus bored, when she was scared versus simply processing. She learned that Lily's favorite time of day was just before sleep, when they would lie together in the narrow hospital bed and make up stories about brave princesses who went on adventures with their mothers. "She's getting stronger," Marcus observed one evening as they watched Lily through the glass door. She was sitting up in bed, animatedly telling Maria about the friendship garden she was planning to plant when she got home. "The doctors say it's temporary," Victoria said quietly. "A good phase before things get harder. Then make the most of it." We are." Victoria's smile was sad but genuine. "She wants to have a tea party next week, a real one with proper invitations and fancy dresses. She's already made a guest list. Me, you, Emma, Maria, and Mr. Bear." "Mr. Bear? Her teddy bear. Apparently he has very strong opinions about proper tea party etiquette." Marcus laughed. "Emma would love that. She's been asking every day when she can meet Lily." "Lily asks about Emma, too. She wants to know if Emma would like to be her best friend, even though they live in different worlds." "Kids don't see different worlds," Marcus said. "They just see other kids." Victoria looked at him thoughtfully. Adults could learn from that. Yeah, Marcus agreed. They could. That night, after Emma was asleep in their small apartment, Marcus sat at their kitchen table and thought about the week that had just passed. A week ago, Victoria Sterling had been a name on a company directory, a powerful stranger whose world was so far removed from his that they might as well have lived on different planets. Now she was someone whose phone number was in his contacts, whose daughter was making friendship bracelets for his daughter, whose transformation from distant CEO to present mother had become something he was invested in witnessing. His phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. Lily fell asleep holding the yellow flower she made for you. She says you're her second best friend, after Emma. Thank you for showing me how to be the mother she needed. Marcus typed back, you were always that mother. You just needed permission to let her see it. A few minutes later, another text. The tea party is this Saturday at 2 p.m. Formal attire required according to Lily. Emma's invitation is attached. Marcus opened the attachment, a hand-drawn invitation with flowers around the border, and Lily's careful handwriting. Please come to my tea party. We will have cake and friendship. Love, Lily Sterling, age 7 and 3/4. At the bottom, in Victoria's elegant script, P.S. Thank you for teaching us both that the best conversations happen over tea and honest hearts. Marcus smiled and saved the invitation to his phone. Tomorrow he would show Emma, and she would spend the rest of the week planning what to wear to her first formal tea party. They would talk about how to be a good friend to someone who was sick, and how sometimes the most important thing you could give someone was just your time and attention. But tonight, Marcus simply sat in his quiet kitchen and marveled at how one conversation at 3 in the morning had somehow opened a door between two worlds that were supposed to remain separate. He thought about Victoria, probably sitting beside Lily's bed right now, maybe reading one more story or singing one more lullaby, learning that the most powerful thing she could do with her billions was simply stay present for the small moments that money couldn't buy. And he thought about Lily, sleeping peacefully surrounded by paper flowers and the knowledge that her mama loved her more than any important meeting, more than any business deal, more than anything else in the world. Sometimes the most important transformations happened quietly, one conversation at a time, one choice to stay present at a time, one paper flower at a time. And sometimes the people who needed each other most were the ones who seemed to have nothing in common except the understanding that love was the only currency that really mattered. The tea party was scheduled for Saturday at 2 p.m., but at 6:47 a.m. that morning, Marcus's phone rang with the kind of call that changed everything. Marcus, it's Victoria. Her voice was tight, controlled, but he could hear the panic underneath. Lily had a seizure during the night. They've moved her to the ICU. The doctor, they're saying things have accelerated faster than they expected. Marcus sat up in bed, his heart hammering. How bad? Bad? The word came out like a confession. They're talking about days now, not months, and she keeps asking for Emma. She wants to have the tea party today in her room. She says she can't wait until Saturday because... Victoria's voice broke. Because she might not be here Saturday? Marcus looked over at Emma, still sleeping peacefully in the bed next to his. Her dark hair spread across the pillow like silk. The thought of having to explain to his 7-year-old daughter that her new friend was dying felt impossible. But the thought of Lily facing her final days without the tea party she'd been planning was worse. We'll be there, Marcus said quietly. Give us an hour. When they arrived at the hospital, Emma clutching a carefully wrapped present and wearing her best purple dress, Marcus barely recognized the ICU. The cheerful pediatric ward had been replaced by something clinical and serious, where machines beeped with urgency and nurses moved with the quiet efficiency of people who dealt with life and death every day. Lily's room was different too. The paper garden had been carefully moved to make room for additional monitors, but it looked smaller now, more fragile against the backdrop of medical equipment. Lily herself seemed to have shrunk overnight, her small frame almost lost in the hospital bed, but her eyes lit up the moment she saw Emma in the doorway. "You came," she whispered, her voice weaker than it had been just days before. "And you wore purple. I knew you'd remember." Emma approached the bed cautiously, her natural 7-year-old confidence tempered by the obvious seriousness of the room. "I brought you something," she said, holding out her present. "Daddy helped me wrap it." Inside was a small purple notebook with "Best Friends Forever" written in Emma's careful handwriting on the cover. "It's for writing down all our adventures," Emma explained. "Even when we can't have them together, we can write them down and they'll still be real." Lily clutched the notebook to her chest, tears streaming down her pale cheeks. "It's perfect. You're perfect." Victoria sat beside the bed, wearing jeans and a simple sweater instead of her usual business attire, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked tired, but somehow more herself than Marcus had ever seen her. "Should we start our tea party?" she asked gently. What followed was perhaps the most beautiful and heartbreaking hour Marcus had ever witnessed. With the help of Maria and the other nurses, they transformed Lily's ICU room into a proper tea party venue. Fancy plastic cups replaced water glasses, apple juice became Earl Grey tea, and hospital graham crackers were arranged on paper plates like delicate pastries. Emma sat carefully on the edge of Lily's bed, both girls wearing construction paper crowns that Victoria had helped them make. They talked about important 7-year-old things, whether unicorns were better than dragons, which Disney princess was the bravest, and what they would do if they could fly. "If I could fly," Lily said thoughtfully, "I would visit Emma every day, even though she lives far away." "If I could fly," Emma replied seriously, "I would take you to my school and show you my classroom and introduce you to my teacher, Miss Rodriguez." Victoria and Marcus sat slightly apart, watching their daughters create a friendship that existed outside of time and medical prognosis, where cancer was just another word, and the only thing that mattered was the immediate magic of being 7 years old with a best friend who understood you. But even as they laughed and shared their makeshift tea, Marcus could see Lily growing tired. Her responses became shorter, her smiles requiring more effort. When she started to doze off mid-conversation, Victoria gently suggested it was time for everyone to rest. "Will you come back tomorrow?" Lily asked Emma as they prepared to leave. Emma looked at Marcus, who nodded. "Every day," Emma promised, "until you don't want me to anymore." "I'll always want you to," Lily whispered. In the hallway outside Lily's room, Victoria and Marcus stood in silence for a long moment. The weight of what was happening, what was going to happen, pressed down on them like a physical thing. "Thank you," Victoria said finally, "for bringing Emma, for letting Lily have this." "She's a remarkable little girl," Marcus replied. "You both are." Victoria smiled sadly. "I keep thinking about what you said that first night, about time being the only thing you can't make more of. I have all the money in the world, and I can't buy her another day, but today was perfect." "Yes, it was." "Marcus," Victoria said, her voice taking on a different quality, after this is over, I don't want to go back to who I was before. The person who was too busy to notice that her daughter was growing up, too focused on success to see what really mattered." Marcus studied her face. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that meeting you, watching you with Emma, learning how to be present with Lily, it's changed me. I don't want to run a company that treats people like you like they're invisible. I don't want to be someone who only connects with others during a crisis." "Victoria, let me finish," she interrupted gently. I want to offer you a job, not out of guilt or charity, but because you have something my company needs. You understand what it means to care about people as individuals, not just as resources. You know how to show up for what matters. Marcus felt something tighten in his chest. I clean offices, Victoria. I don't have a business degree or executive experience. You have something better. You have wisdom about what matters and the courage to act on it. I want you to help me create programs for employees like you, single parents, people working multiple jobs, people who the system overlooks. I want you to help me build a company that sees its people as whole human beings, not just workers. I don't know anything about running programs. You know everything about needing them. That's more valuable than any MBA. Victoria paused. I'm not asking you to become someone different. I'm asking you to help me become someone better. Before Marcus could respond, Maria appeared at Lily's door, her expression grave. Ms. Sterling, could I speak with you for a moment? The conversation was brief, but decisive. Lily's condition was deteriorating rapidly. The doctors were estimating hours now, not days. If there were things that needed to be said or done, now was the time. Victoria returned to Marcus, pale but resolute. I need to call her father. He's in London, but he should be here. Her voice caught. And I need to make some decisions about what comes next. What do you need from me? Just stay if you can. Lily loves Emma, and I think it would comfort her to know her friend is close by. The next 12 hours unfolded with the surreal mixture of ordinary moments and profound grief that accompanies the end of a young life. Victoria's ex-husband arrived from London, a tall man with kind eyes who looked at his daughter with the same fierce love that radiated from Victoria. Emma colored quietly in the corner, occasionally showing Lily her artwork, somehow understanding without being told that her friend needed gentle, normal things. As evening approached, Lily grew weaker but remained alert, surrounded by everyone who loved her. She asked Victoria to read her favorite story, the one about the brave princess who saved her kingdom not with magic or weapons, but with kindness and courage. She asked Emma to sing the song about friendship that they'd learned together. She asked her father to tell her again about the stars and whether she'd be able to see them from heaven. And as the sun set over Chicago, casting golden light through the hospital room window, Lily Sterling closed her eyes for the last time, surrounded by love and paper flowers and the echoes of laughter from the most perfect tea party ever held in an ICU room. Victoria held her daughter's hand as she slipped away, whispering words of love and gratitude for every moment they'd shared. Marcus stood with Emma at the foot of the bed, his arm around his daughter's shoulders, both of them crying quietly as they said goodbye to a friend who had taught them that love could bloom anywhere, even in the sterile corridors of a children's hospital. She's not hurting anymore, Emma whispered. No, Victoria said softly, stroking Lily's peaceful face. She's not hurting anymore. In the weeks that followed, Marcus watched Victoria navigate grief with the same determination she had once brought to business deals, but tempered now with the humanity Lily had helped her rediscover. The funeral was both grand and intimate. Hundreds of employees and business associates came to pay their respects, but the service itself focused on Lily the child, not Lily the daughter of a billionaire. Emma sang the friendship song, her clear voice carrying across the chapel like a promise that some connections transcend even death. Victoria took a leave of absence from Sterling Dynamics, something that would have been unthinkable 6 months earlier. Instead, she focused on creating the Lily Sterling Foundation, dedicated to supporting families facing pediatric illness, not just with medical expenses, but with the kind of practical, emotional support that helped parents stay present for their children during impossible times. "I want every parent to have what you gave me," she told Marcus as they sat in her office, now converted into Foundation headquarters. The understanding that being there matters more than fixing everything. "And the job offer?" Marcus asked. Victoria smiled, the expression transformed by grief into something deeper and more genuine than her old corporate confidence. "Still stands. Actually, it's evolved. I don't just want you to help me create employee programs. I want you to help me run the foundation. You understand what families need because you've lived it." Marcus looked around the office, transformed from a symbol of corporate power into something warmer and more human. Photos of Lily covered one wall, not posed professional shots, but candid images of a little girl laughing, creating art, hugging her mother. The paper garden from her hospital room sat framed on Victoria's desk, a reminder that the most beautiful things were often made by hand with love. "I'd want to bring Emma with me sometimes," Marcus said finally. "After school, during breaks. She's part of this story, too." "I wouldn't have it any other way. Lily would want Emma to be involved in helping other kids." "And I'd want to keep cleaning," Marcus added, surprising himself with the words. "Not full-time, but sometimes. It reminds me where I came from, and it keeps me connected to the people we're trying to help." Victoria nodded. "I think that's perfect. I think Lily would think that's perfect, too." As they shook hands, two people whose worlds had collided in the most unexpected way, bound together now by loss and love and the determination to honor a 7-year-old girl's memory. Marcus thought about that night 6 weeks ago when he'd found Victoria crying in her office. How neither of them could have imagined that a chance encounter at 3 a.m. would lead to this moment, this partnership, this shared mission to make sure other families didn't face their darkest hours alone. 6 months later, the Lily Sterling Foundation had helped more than 200 families navigate pediatric illness with dignity and support. Marcus had become its director of family services, using his understanding of struggle and his gift for seeing people's humanity to create programs that addressed real needs: transportation to medical appointments, childcare for siblings, meal delivery during hospital stays, counseling services that treated grief as natural rather than pathological. Victoria had returned to Sterling Dynamics, but as a different kind of CEO, one who instituted generous family leave policies, on-site childcare, and what she called presence bonuses for managers who prioritized their employees' humanity alongside productivity. The company's culture shifted from one of competitive isolation to collaborative support, and employee satisfaction soared even as profits remained strong. Emma, now 8, had become the foundation's unofficial ambassador, visiting families and sharing Lily's story with the natural wisdom that children brought to questions of love and loss. She kept the purple notebook Lily had treasured, filling it with stories about their friendship and letters to her best friend in heaven. And Marcus had learned that sometimes the most important transformations began with a single act of compassion, staying when you could have left, listening when you could have walked away, choosing to see the humanity in someone society had taught you to overlook. Standing in Victoria's office one evening as they reviewed applications for the Foundation's newest program, Marcus looked at the photo of Lily that held the place of honor on Victoria's desk. A picture of her laughing during their tea party, her paper crown slightly crooked, her eyes bright with the joy of being 7 and loved. "She'd be proud of this," he said softly. Victoria followed his gaze to the photo. "She'd probably have suggestions for how to make it better, and she'd insist that every family we help gets a friendship garden and a proper tea party." "That could be arranged." Victoria smiled, The real smile he'd first seen in that ICU room, born of grief but sustained by love. You know what I think she'd be proudest of? What? That her mama learned how to show up, and that her friend Emma's daddy helped teach her how. Marcus nodded, understanding that this was Lily's real legacy, not the foundation or the programs or the millions of dollars dedicated to helping other families, important as those things were. Her real gift to the world was the transformation she'd inspired in the people who loved her, the reminder that presence was more powerful than perfection, and that sometimes the most important conversations happened at 3 a.m. between two people who had every reason to remain strangers. Outside the office windows, Chicago sparkled in the evening light, a city full of people rushing between their responsibilities and dreams, most of them unaware that their lives could change completely with a single moment of choosing to stay, instead of walking away, to listen instead of judging, to see instead of overlooking. But Marcus and Victoria knew, and every day they used that knowledge to make sure other people, other parents, other children, other families facing impossible situations would never have to face them alone. Because Lily Sterling had taught them that love was the only currency that really mattered, and that showing up for each other was the most important business any of them would ever be in. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.